Well, everybody. Hello to everyone who's joining me today for Satsang from my new digs. This is my new apartment. I haven't had a place of my own for 5 years, so it's been quite a transition. This last week, I've spent just the whole time just organizing. I had no furniture. I had nothing. So I had to come up with it all, which I've been doing. I have a nice desk. I got my lights set up. I have the fastest internet service you can get, the fiber optic, which means that today I am broadcasting in 1080p. So the picture should be beautifully clear and just perfectly clear, and will stay that way. It shouldn't go up and down. I mean, I live in the neighborhood with Amazon, Microsoft, and Boeing. Surely I can get dependable internet service here. So so good to be back with you all. It seems like forever. It just seems like it's been so long since my last satsang, and it's only been 2 weeks. Nonetheless, it has been an incredibly eventful 2 weeks for me, with a 1,500-mile drive that I did in 2 days, and just the change in the climate, the change in the time zone. I went from the dryness of the desert to the moisture of the Pacific Northwest. Immediately, my hair began to curl. My COVID hairdo is not holding up very well, but it's a great spot. I have a patio, so I'm looking out over a beautiful atrium with pine trees and flowers. Well, there's no flowers in bloom now because it's going into winter, but it's really quite a lovely place. Very, very quiet building. Very urban. I walk out my door. I take a bridge across a big street, and I'm at a park right at Elliott Bay on the Puget Sound. So I go out in the morning and run a little bit to get some exercise because I haven't been able to be in a gym, and the gyms here are all closed except for outside classes and that sort of thing. But enough about that. Hopefully you like my new things, the candles and lights, the new picture, my Buddha picture, which many of you know is in front of me now. Maybe I'll move it somewhere else where it's part of the scenery. But it's a very comfortable place. It's a very comfortable place for me to be and do my work. So I want to thank you all for joining me. Please type into the chat where your name and where you're listening from or watching, and especially if this is the first time you've experienced one of my satsangs, that's very useful for me to know. I'm always very open to new people coming in who know nothing about it, which is really the whole format of my radio show, which I think I'm on episode 8 now. It's been going on for 2 months. And my on-air producer she selects all the subjects because until she had met me a few months earlier, she had never even heard the term non-duality. So her questions are always very fresh, very innocent, and it's really a beautiful format for radio. Here in Satsang, we can go in much deeper. We can go in as deep as powerful. Satsang is about communing with the truth. That's what the word means. It's Sanskrit for communion with truth. Sat is the word for truth. It is also the word for being, as in Sat Chit Ananda. To the Hindu mind and the Advaitist mind, being and truth are one. The truth is the reality, what actually is, right? Which is the verb to be, what is. So truth and being are absolutely inseparable. And that's what satsang is all about. It's a communion with your own being. We're not talking about some abstract truth. We're not talking about some truth that, somebody had in a book somewhere, or that you learned or read, or even that you reasoned through. It is a direct insight. It is you. The truth is you. It's not about you. It is you. A truth about you is no more powerful or significant than a video of you, right? You want the real you, not some version of you, not some watered down idea about you, but the actual reality of you. Who are you? Take away all the names. Take away all your conditioning. Take away all the old patterns. Take away all your memories and associations, which would even mean your name, right? Your gender, right? Without the concept of it, it's just what is. Take all of that away, and what's left? This is the quest for non-dual inquiry, the quest for satsang. This is why we are here. To ask that question, but to ask it directly of being itself. Not wanting an answer that is a truth about you, but the actual truth of you. It's the difference between knowing about a place and actually knowing the place. Reading the map and wandering around, or just knowing it like the back of your hand. Knowing it intimately and closely. And in satsang, the only thing we're interested in knowing is ourselves. This isn't selfish. This isn't egotistical. This isn't arrogant. Because on a very practical level, every experience of your life revolves around how you see yourself. I'm hearing a slight buzzing. If anybody is also hearing that, please let me know. And something seems to have frozen up here. I'm just gonna restart this whole thing. There we go. It seemed to lock up a little bit, but now it seems to be good. It seems to be good. Hopefully you all heard me. Let's see down at the bottom. Yes, it's a buzzing. I hear it. Sometimes it's buzzing. Intermittent buzzing. Okay, there's a loose connection here somewhere. I'll do this real quick. All right. I just put us on a different channel. Quick sound check here. I found the problem. There we go. That's a little better. How's that? That's a little better. That should take care of the buzz. Thank you for pointing that out to me. I do have headphones here. I don't have speakers because that would be echoing feedback, but I do have headphones that I can hear when something is happening. So let's just say hello to people and get into some questions here. Vanyashi, sending everyone a virtual hug. Rosario in Spain. Thanks for being back with us. It's good to be here. It's very good to be here. John Watson in Scotland. October Paul. Much love from Portland, Maine. It's such a blessing to be here. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul. Or is it Stephen? No, it's Stephen is your first name. I keep forgetting. Hi from Ireland. Looking forward to next week's retreat. John from John Sheehan. Yes, I'll tell people about that in a little bit. I am doing a retreat, a private retreat. Not private, I mean, it's open to anybody who wants to come, but, but you do have to register in advance. Oh, there it goes again. Are you hearing that? Is there something wrong with the mic? Oh, technology problems again. Can you believe this? I'm going to give it one more chance. Jay in California. Hello, Jay. Ava in Poland. David and Elaine. Hi, and GB and everyone. Greetings from Southeast England. Hope you had a smooth transition back to Seattle. I did. I did. GP, I missed you. From Sue McIntosh. It's the microphone. All right. I'm going to kind of blank out here for a second and switch microphones, because I think that's what the problem is. to stream. All right, let's see if everyone can hear me now, except I got the microphone right in front of my face so that you can hear. So we'll have to just endure this for a bit. So how is everything now coming? Can you believe it? I just can't escape from technological errancy. But anyway, where was I? I know you're all hearing me now. Make sure you're pulled back. And that guy's off. These guys are all off. I'll have to test that later. Let's see. Sue, missed you. I listened to the old Satsangs over and over again. Sue here from South Africa. Wonderful, wonderful. Alicia! Oh, beautiful Alicia. So good to see you. Kiran, and good to get on live once again. Yes, indeed. Hello, Crispin in Switzerland. Oops, sorry. Didn't mean to do that. Maribeth. Oh, Maribeth from Southern California. Good to have you. Patricia. Good. Thank you on my move. Debbie Rolf in Toronto. Dale, wow, nice setup there, G. Congratulations on your place. Thank you very much. Good to see you again, G. Welcome back. Thank you. Anja in Germany. That is Liza on the East Coast. Ursula in Madeira Island. Penny. Himank. The universe is created the moment consciousness is born. Isn't that right? I love your questions, Himank. Well, in a matter of speaking, yes, we can talk about it like that. But remember, when we're talking about consciousness, you're talking about timelessness. So consciousness is never born, right? It has no beginning. It simply is. This is the impossible thing for the mind to grasp, because the mind has to see things in terms of events, of cause and effect, of this happened, then this happened, and it assumes that consciousness is like that consciousness happened at some point in time. And our modern materialistic view is that consciousness is a function of the material body, that there's some delicate, subtle structure in the brain that allows us to be self-aware. It hasn't been found or identified, and if one just really ponders that, the idea of such a thing is almost absurd. That a self-awareness evolving out of something that has no self-awareness. To the strict materialist, it's an illusion. There is no self. There's just conditioning. That really is the view, that view. So you can't see consciousness as something that depends on anything else. Right? Your consciousness, that is, which is what you are, by the way, it's not something you have. It is, in fact, what you are. That consciousness had no beginning. You had no beginning. The body did. Various transitions in your life did. Stuff comes and goes all the time. But the ultimate perceiver of what comes and goes never came and will never go. It simply is. So worlds are not created when consciousness is born, because consciousness is never born. Worlds are born. Worlds come, worlds go. I mean, every moment the world is new. Every moment everything is different. Nothing ever stays the same. You can't put your foot in the same river twice. You don't sit and look at the river and go, "Oh, come back, river, come back," as the water goes by. It's a flow. That is the nature of life. This constant flow of transformation against the background of the unborn and the timeless. So there's this endless flow, being witnessed by that which is not flowing. And so, because it is a constant flow, at what moment is the universe created? The mind reduces everything we experience into an object that has at least some degree of fixedness, of stability, for at least a short period of time. But where's the stability? At what point is the river static? Never. At what point is the universe static? Never. So in a very real sense, creation never even happens. There is no moment where something comes into existence. It's a mystery, but it is not impenetrable. At what point does something come into being? Well, the answer is never. And yet the universe is. There's this constant flow, but there's nothing flowing. And no matter how thinly you slice time, you will never find a thing. On a very practical level, this just inspires us to let go of thinking of ourselves as a thing. The moment you think of yourself as a thing, I am this person, I am this entity, I am this character, I behave like this, I don't like that. The moment you start thinking like that, you have frozen yourself in the mind. Not in reality, because you can't freeze reality, because reality never stops moving. But you can form a concept of yourself as something static, as something that isn't a flow. And it's just a concept. If you become free of that, every moment will become this incredible celebration, this incredible wonder of surprise. It will be constant novelty, but not destabilizing, because this constant novelty is being perceived by an unmoving background, which is the nature of consciousness itself. And yet they're one. The unmoving and the constantly moving are not two. And you can see both. And because you can see both, you are transcendent of both. You are beyond any categorization. You're beyond existing and not existing. You are beyond all opposites. You cannot conceive of yourself. You are simply aware. Indefinable, unchangeable, immovable, dimensionless, timeless, birthless, deathless. That's you. Not a bad deal. Let's see. Does that help you, Himunk? It's your question. The universe created the moment consciousness is born. From one level and certain traditions, that would be the case. But this path takes it all the way to the end result, where you find everything is and yet nothing is. Sorry, I hope that didn't go completely by you. Hello from Poland, from Anna Maria. Anja, so glad you're back online. Me too. Jay says, so far interconnections holding up nice, and nice clean shave. You like my shave? I shaved. How about that? I don't know what possessed me to do that. I just did. Roberto, so good to see you. Roberto is in Madrid. Yogasvara from Bosnia. Nice mandalas. Oh, thank you. Aren't they? Yeah, they're quite pretty. Yeah, I like them. Let's see. Linus, hey G, I started retaining semen and doing Qigong. Now strong energies are arising, especially at the pelvic breath. I'm anxious and sometimes, and I don't know if I can handle Kundalini, maybe. Thoughts? the intention of Kundalini, the Kundalini yoga and breath practices, are to release a certain kind of energy. And in the modern interpretation of the Kundalini model, that energy is supposed to lead to enlightenment. That's inaccurate. The Kundalini model is the common yoga or chakras you see lined up, from the pelvic floor up to the crown. Traditionally, they were always represented with the core running up the center with two snakes curled around it. Now, the two snakes represented immortality, because unlike the West, where the snake is, the demon, the deceiver, right, the trickster, in the East, the snake represented immortality because it literally shed its skin. It was a representation of reincarnation and the like. And this model was to represent the ascension of consciousness from the purely instinctual, which were represented by the lower three, through the energy of the heart, which is the expansion, and eventually transcending the merely material, psychological, emotional, and animal instincts. That's what it was meant to represent, and it is a representation. It wasn't about these actual spinning vortexes of light. This is the Kundalini model. This is the Kundalini rising. And the Kundalini simply represented the rising of consciousness out of its identification with form into its re-identification with the formless. Out of identification with the universe and into the consciousness, which is the background of the universe. That's what it was supposed to represent. And when it's seen that way, you realize it's a depth of insight. It's a shift in our perception of ourselves. It is not some kind of physical or spiritual energy that's supposed to be released and take over the body. Now, there's all sorts of energy and stuff in the body that we could make use of. And unfortunately, many people who have gone through this process of releasing the Kundalini were not prepared in terms of their character. It was not really a spiritual journey. It was this attempt to kind of force an awakening to occur. The releasing of that energy, most of the time I've seen it, it has not been pleasant for the people. Some it's even been horrible. Right? Once that genie is out of the bottle, you can't get him back in, and so there's this emphasis on trying to make something happen and a complete ignoring of the kind of spiritual preparation required in order to handle that kind of energy. Sometimes the physical body simply isn't strong enough to handle it. Our psychological makeup, our sense of identity, isn't strong enough to handle it. So I never tell somebody don't do something, right? It's not my place. But I try to explain things the way I see them and what the actual meaning of these various kinds of approaches was, and how they've gotten distorted in the West. I mean, yoga, there's 8 paths of yoga. What we're talking about here, this non-dual inquiry, is called jnana yoga. It's Jnana. Jnana yoga, which is the path of the sublimation of wisdom, right? Sublimation being when it goes from a frozen to a gaseous state without the intermediate step of turning into water. So it represents this sudden enlightenment, this sudden awakening. Right. Now, there's 8 paths of yoga, but you mention the word yoga in the West, and what do they think about? Exercise. That's it. That's all they know about. Right. So yoga has become associated with that, like meditation has become associated with, manifestation or stress relief and that sort of thing. It's a nice side benefit, but that's not what it's for. So I caution people about jumping into any kind of technique that has a specific intention towards a particular kind of transformation. And that would include semen and retention, Kundalini. I find things like Qigong or just Hatha Yoga to be completely neutral. They don't have that kind of effect. They just bring about health and well-being. But there are some people who also go into yoga and Qigong, to gain some of the city powers. So let your attention be focused on coming to a direct seeing of who you are. Not an attempt of self-improvement or personal development, whether that be through some esoteric technique like Kundalini, or it be like, success, taking success classes or personal development, whatever it might be. The emphasis in this path is not on personal development. It's not gaining certain kinds of powers. It's not gaining certain abilities. The whole focus of this is to know who you are. And when you know who you are, it will release certain powers and abilities, but they'll be handled wisely. Michael Brown put it beautifully. He said that it's true that after enlightenment, you gain the power to move mountains, to tell the mountain to jump into the sea. But the thing is you realize the mountain is just fine right where it is, and you have no interest in exercising those kinds of powers. Okay? The ego is a relentless seeker. It is forever trying to acquire things to improve itself, to enhance itself. Because the ego is unstable and it's basically a complete fiction. It is a self-image that is not based on anything other than just memories and associations and thoughts, conditioning, arbitrary patterns. So it can never be satisfied. It can never be made good. It can never be saved, and it can never be enlightened. Enlightened and true enlightenment is the realization of who you actually are, and that you are not the ego. You are not your conditioning. You are not your memories. You are not your past or your future. That you are this pure consciousness right now, which needs no improvement. All the improvement is for the ego. You don't need any improving at all. You are just right, just as you are. Does that help you, Linus? Again, I never tell anybody to do something or not do something. I just want to give you the whole picture. Rosario, life has given you what you needed to enjoy with all of us. We're grateful and happy for you. Thank you, Rosario. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it here. It's small. It's not luxurious, but it's quite comfortable, quiet. And will the retreat be new material for those of us who have done IR3 and most of your other courses? Well, I guess I should mention it. I'll put it up there right now. Banners, there we go. gpwalsh.com/retreat if you want to learn about it. In a retreat, it's an intensive. I don't introduce material like I do in the courses, right? I won't be teaching anything, right? The point of a retreat is for us to be able to work directly with each other. In this setting, people ask me a question in the chat, and I can answer the question. But the questions keep coming, and somebody may have a follow up, and it'll be like a half an hour later before I even see it. There's nothing I can do about that. It's the way it is. But in the retreat format, it'll be on Zoom. We'll all be there together. You'll be able to see and hear me. I'll be able to see and hear you. So I can actually work with people one-on-one to deepen your inquiry. So I won't be teaching anything. I'm not going to be handing out new material. I'm not going to be giving new insights. I'm going to be taking what we already know, and deepening it. And if you're new to this kind of an inquiry, well, I'll take you right from where you are to as far as you can get in our time together. So that's the advantage of the retreat. It is a practicum. It's lab work. It's not a lecture. Right? I'll talk about some things. I will definitely lead some meditations. I may bring out my tongue drum, which is sitting over there, and we'll be doing meditative inquiry and Vedantic inquiry, which is speaking and thinking and reasoning through to try to cut through the illusions of the mind. So it's not about material. It's about doing it. It's about practice. We're not just going to talk about art. We're going to make art. How's that? And for those of you who are interested, I've got plenty of space available. It starts next Friday, just 3 days, from 1 to 3:30 Eastern Time, which is 10 in the morning on the West Coast. It's 1. Sorry, it's 1 to 3. Yeah, right. So that makes it like 6 in the evening in Europe, 6, 7, and 8 as you move through Europe. So the idea will be to create a retreat environment as best as we can. Considering COVID, we can't get together in person, which I would prefer to do. We can't do that. So I would encourage people to just set aside some time to truly be with yourself over that weekend. And we'll spend a couple hours together on video, working with each other, and then we'll break and we'll do it again in the next morning. So I've made it very reasonable price. It's only $100 US, which I think is something like 70. Oops. It's something like $70 for you guys in Europe. A little bit more for my Canadian buddies. But there is the link right there to register and get into it. I hope you'll all come. I'd love to have all of you. I can easily handle 100. Not much more than that. Yeah. So, by all means, join me. Roberto says, I'll take this off the screen right now for now. Roberto says, I've been feeling really bad lately, JP. I do not feel any better, but more like in a turmoil or a whirl. So, there's some things in my life that took a very, very long time to work through. Even though I had deep, significant spiritual experiences the whole time, it took a while for me to truly grasp the significance of how deep our conditioning runs. The vasanas, which is kind of conditioning on steroids. It's the vasanas that go from lifetime to lifetime, and how even a small identification with the body-mind can produce enormously disturbing difficulties and symptoms. which is why I'm forever pointing out that the answer to all of it is to identify yourself correctly. No matter what you are experiencing, no matter how difficult it is, right? You are the observer of it. Now, to truly be the witness of it, the pure witness of it, you can have no vested interest in the outcome. You can have no concern over the results. It's not about something going away or getting fixed. It's a very natural thing. I'm not discounting it. But the real way to freedom is where the circumstances no longer matter. You're not living your life in an attempt to fix or correct or improve anymore. You are life itself. You are experiencing it just as it is. And then you begin to realize that it's all the conditioning. And the conditioning will be there as long as it is. If I resist the conditioning, I literally empower it because I'm giving strength and energy to the conflict. If you want to end the conflict, which is the suffering, somebody has to drop out. Somebody has to just stop fighting and just let it be what it is. This is without a doubt the hardest thing for us to do, but it is also the most necessary. It's absolutely critical. To truly allow things to be as they are is to drop all your argument with the way things are. No matter what you happen to be experiencing at the time, you simply let it be there and you watch it. And little by little, from this place of the true pure witness, wisdom begins to emerge. This separation between yourself and the conditioning grows bigger and bigger. The conditioning no longer being fed by either your active participation or your resistance begins to dissolve because there's nothing sustaining it. Your attention to it, whether that be indulgence or resistance, your attention to it is the only thing that feeds it. That's how powerful your attention is. Wherever it goes, it amplifies what it sees. And this is easy to illustrate. I mean, everybody's had the experience of doing something and you're so focused on it, you see nothing around you at all. Maybe it's a movie you're into or something, right? And there can be things going on, you don't see it. The only thing there is this. Right? Now the thing is, our conditioning is always demanding us to see nothing but that. to not see anything outside of it. And this is where we get into our habitual patterns of lack and fear and self-doubt and the like. They're all coming from this habitual behavior of focusing on the very thing we don't want to experience. And the focus takes the form of resistance. I don't want this. I want this to go away. Right? But it's whether it's I love this, I want more of it, or I hate this, I want it to go away, the attention is still on the same thing. So when you are feeling really bad, right, notice how much you don't want to feel that. That's the fight right there. Now, I'm not saying you have to start wanting to feel that. That would be insane. Of course, nobody wants to feel bad, right? What I'm saying is, allow it. To the degree that you allow it, to that degree, you will stop suffering. This is not anything you're going to be taught in school or in church or synagogue or temple. Right? This is nothing that you're going to learn about in self-help or personal development, manifestation, any of that stuff. Unless it just allow the good stuff. Right? Allow it all. Absolutely allow everything to be just as it is. And you might as well, because it already is. It's not even you're allowing it. You're simply harmonizing with what's in fact already here. These feelings are there. But allowing that feeling causes me to drop my story about that feeling. Because the suffering is in the story, not in the feeling. Animals don't suffer. They feel pain, intense pain, but they don't suffer because they have no story about it. They have no resistance to it. They don't try to stop it or fix it or change it or prepare for the next time it might happen. They're 100% present, and therefore they do not suffer. Suffering is psychological. It is egoistic. It is our story that for some reason this thing, which is happening, shouldn't be happening. Now, really, when you think about it, isn't that about just the most absurd thing you've ever heard? It's happening, and then we decide it shouldn't be. But it is. As Nisargadatta said, destiny is what happens. So I hope that helps. And it's, an inner turmoil is okay. An inner turmoil is okay. It takes time and patience and sometimes an enormous amount of self-love and compassion to make a transition from a habitual way of thinking and being into the true way of thinking and being, where the conditioning really does begin to fall away. And even the attempt to do that is going to create a reactive pattern in the nervous system because it's habitual. That's what nervous systems do. They form automatic behaviors and stay there. So when you introduce the idea of you being something other than what you thought you've been, you've introduced a whirlwind into the functioning of the nervous system because it has been operating under the assumption that this idea you had of yourself is actually who you are. You discover that it isn't. So what's happening? The whole system is being, this whole apple cart is being turned over. And yes, it's going to feel tumultuous, disorienting, maybe even a little crazy. But it's a good crazy. Because you're leaving behind the fictional version of yourself to discover the you that's actually real. Not the truth about you, but the truth that is you. Does that help you, Roberto? Love you so much, man. You've come so far since I've known you. Okay, I just got to this section here where the buzzing, and now we've gotten past the buzz. I think it was probably the cable. Welcome back, says Roberto. Welcome back. Thank you. Good now, better, good, better, buzz. Sophia. Hello, Sophia. From Switzerland. Good to have you. Jonathan Hernandez in Cape Coral, Florida. Hi, Jonathan. Sarah Sons. Hello, Sarah. I'm so excited about your apartment. I hope you're happy. Yes, I'm thoroughly loving it. October Paul. Is self-realization the result of practice, or is it predestined by grace? Yes, and yes. it is not a result of practice. Let's be clear about that. There's no formula. You do this, 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 and this, and then ta-da, angels sing. If enlightenment is real, if awakening is truly real, the awakening to who you really are, self-realization is real, it cannot have a cause. It cannot have a starting point. Now just bear with me this, because this is subtle. Anything that has a beginning must have an end. Right? So if self-realization is to be the self-realization, it cannot have a beginning. Because if it did, it would have an end. If enlightenment was the result of some process, it means that something caused it, which means it's just part of the chain of causation, and it'll go up and down like everything else. And it'll go through another cycle of delusion. So this can't be something that is attained. What? Well, then is it predestined? Well, first off, it's not in time at all. When you realize something, right, what you have realized is not something newly gained. It is something that has always been true. Now, from the human perspective, we experience self-realization. We have what appears to be an experience. So it looks like it's gone from somebody who was deluded to somebody who is awake. But that's only how it appears. The actual experience itself is the one who was deluded disappears like a dream, and you realize it's never been there. They've never been that. I was never that. I was always the consciousness that was aware of this one who was seeking. And so the self-realization itself takes place in the dream. Now, I don't want to discount that. Buddha himself referred to the beautiful experience of what he called the personal realization of Buddha knowledge. That is what we call awakening or enlightenment. Now, it's not you doing it. Right? We think, okay, I'm deluded. I want to wake up, so I'm going to do these practices, and then I'm going to wake up. But as I said in the beginning, the awakening is you realize that the one who is seeking and trying to wake up never existed. It was completely a fabrication of the mind. And you have been the conscious awareness the entire time watching it. Both the seeker and the seeking have been watched by the sought. And then the seeker and the seeking falls away. What that process looks like from the perspective of time, right? Because we're talking about the timeless, kind of filtering through and penetrating the field of time. What that looks like is you're taking up certain practices. Well, that's not actually what's happening. Right? They're spontaneously arising. You come to these satsangs. Why? I mean, really look closely. Something inside of you simply got drawn to it. Irresistibly, maybe. I mean, there is a point at which the taste for this becomes so alive that you just can't get enough of it. What are you tasting? You're tasting your real freedom. Right? The real freedom, which is grace, is piercing through the veil of illusion. And little by little, that dream of somebody who's even seeking and will get self-realization will be seen through. And then it will be seen as the eternal state, the absolute truth, that you never were a seeker, that all of that was the game, was the play of Leela. Play doesn't necessarily mean like children with toys. I mean, it could be a play, and it could be a Shakespearean tragedy where the stage is littered with bodies at the end. So it's not, playtime. This is the dance of consciousness. This is the dance of experience. And in order to experience, there must be enormous contrast. And one of the things that is experienced is self-realization. In order to experience self-realization, we have to imagine somebody who isn't self-realized. But the true self is never anything but self-realized. It does not misconceive. Which is, I point you to the evidence of that. No matter what it appears, even the greatest realization, right, appearing in a moment of time, will be perceived by something that was there before it and is there after it. That which is perceiving it, pure consciousness, that is the real self that is realized. And it doesn't realize itself, it's always realized. The one who is striving for self-realization simply disappears. Ramana Maharshi said, the biggest obstacle to enlightenment is believing you're not enlightened. The one who isn't enlightened is a fiction. It's in the imagination. It's an image in the mind. It's not you. Does that help, Mr. Paul? Buzz, buzz, buzz with the honeybee. Hey, Andrew. Over, darn. No. I just disappeared to change microphones. I think it was the cable, actually, that went bad. I have to stock up on some new cables. Sophie, and also in Portugal. Hello, Sophie. Good. Now, okay, good. I'm getting lots of good. Blue 2438. I never met the other 2,437. Andrew, mind is time, body is space. So outside of time and space. I like your mandalas. Thank you. Yes. I mean, mind and body are really one. Right? Body is form, and form doesn't exist without the mind. And the mind can't exist without form. So it is the mind-body continuum. The body-mind it's often referred to. They talk about it, they use that term all the time in Zen. And so both of those are one with space and time. You can't separate form from space and time. Right? Even though it's all conceptual, it's all an image, they don't actually exist as an actual entity. So mind, body, space, time, dimensions, past, future are all interdependent. As Buddha referred to it as a dependent arising. You cannot have mind without body. You cannot have body without mind. There's nothing there to recognize it. You cannot have time without space. Right? You can't have mind without space and time, because space is defined by the objects in it. Space has no meaning or definition if you take the objects out of it. Same thing with time. Space is simply the relative distance between objects. Time is the relative distance between events. If you take the events out, what do you have? So the time and events, space and objects are one. You cannot have one without the other. Take away the objects, space and time cease to exist. So they aren't a thing in and of themselves. They are mutually dependent. Right? And mind is form. And what is body but form? Mind is the creator of objects. So it creates space and time, the container in which objects appear. Right? But consciousness is timeless. It is object-free. In fact, it is the container, you might say, that all objects appear in, that mind appears in, which gives rise to universe and to space. So, you, the conscious awareness, are not bound by time and space. They are in you. You are not in them. Is that good, Andrew? Daryl. Hello? John Sheehan, is the I am the first manifestation of the self? Yes. And that's easy. That's very easy to see in a very practical and a direct way. Just right now, put your attention on the sense of your own being. There's just a sense of your own existence, right? If I was doing a full meditation, we'd go through just kind of withdrawing from thought, from emotion, from sensation, things all just coming back. Your attention just withdrawing more and more out of the activities that we normally are witnessing, to just this sense of your own being. That sense of the being, the sense I am. I know I am. I exist and I know it. Sat Chit. And there's a sense of being there. It's palpable. It's subtle. It is the most subtle thing of all. That is the I am. Now, is there not something even more subtle that is aware of that? Something that you cannot be aware of. It's the awareness itself. That's the absolute, which is what you are. Before the words I am, the thought I am, the sense I am, and all the experience that comes with it, before that could ever be uttered or experienced, you have to be there first. You have to be before the sense I am could even arise. So the ultimate existence, the absolute being, is prior even to the sense I am. And with the sense I am comes the manifest universe. For the I am is the theme that is repeated through everything. It is the beingness of all things. I mean, we all refer to ourselves by the same name. We all have the same name. We're all I am. Nobody refers to themselves in third person or second person. You always refer to yourself as I. It's the same I. And there's something there. Just look for yourself, and it's self-evident. I'm here before even the sense I am. I'd have to be. That which actually is, and is not a result of something else. It is the eternal, the self-existent and self-luminous, the true self, the I prior to I, the ultimate I am, before even the words are uttered. This is yourself. Mr. Paul, after my last mystical experience, it felt impossible for my practice to start working again. I was immediately thrust into a very dark period that I haven't come out of yet. What can I do? Well, come to my retreat. Come to my retreat. I'd love to be able to interact with you more personally. It's often a surprise to us, it certainly was to me, as the depth of insight dawns, the kind of darkness that it invokes in our whole nervous system and energies field and all of that. It's such a surprise because the mystical experiences are so expansive and so freeing, so full of love and joy. But of course, we want to cling to that. But the wanting to cling to the mystical experience is one of the traps along the way. Because it is an experience, and all experiences will come and go. And all experiences will usually flip over to their other side. Now, if you're in a position of total neutrality, total allowing, total okay with whatever is, this won't bother you. You'll just see it as part of the process, part of the way in which the non-dual understanding permeates and colonizes the whole rest of the system so that it becomes lived and not just experienced. It becomes the breath of life itself. When you are able to do that, this starts to do this. Everything starts to level out. Because we love this, we love that high, but we're so used to struggling. When we taste that freedom, we don't want to let go of it. We become attached to the experience. See people all the time seeking a peak experience, and then another peak experience, and then another peak experience, thinking that somehow they're going to get this peak experience that's going to stick. Right? No experience sticks. That's the nature of experience. The only thing that sticks is you, and you're not an experience. So you get the peak, right? And then you'll have a trough. The very fact that this is so wonderful, when suddenly I feel back in my body again and I feel all the normal kinds of things, it's horrible. I want to get rid of it. And I want to cling to this, right? Attachment, aversion. Attachment and aversion, right? The cause of suffering. There's the suffering in a nutshell. When this is no less important and no less interesting than this, and when this becomes no more necessary than this, you're here. And now experiences can come and go, because awakening is not an experience. It is a realization. It is self-realization. It can come with enormous emotional release, a lot of stuff going along, a lot of psychological, intellectual clarity can come about as a result, but that's not it. The essential insight is not an experience. You're not an experience. You're not something that you are experiencing. You are the one to which all experience is appearing. And that's not an experience. So when you have the mystical experience, it's wonderful. Enjoy it. Grab the fruit of it. Probe the wisdom of it. And then, when the vasanas and conditioning begin to reassert themselves, pay attention to it. Notice it. Watch it. Think, this is how it works. And don't allow yourself to become attached to one or the other. Because in the middle is freedom. That's why Buddha referred to it as the middle way. The middle is freedom. Consciousness is simply constant. It doesn't do this. It is that which experiences this. I want you to know yourself as this, not as this. Then this is irrelevant. The roller coaster can be enjoyable. And everything, nothing will that comes, be it wonderful or horrible, will affect you. It will not influence your sense of self. It will not corrupt you, and it will not bother you. You will simply be okay. Does that help? October? So, right now, if you're in a dark period, completely embrace the dark period. Are you any different in a dark period than in a light period, in the mystical experience? Or is just the experience different? Is the conscious awareness shifted at all? Is your knowing of the experience any different? That's where your attention has to go. Be freed from our dependency upon conditions and our relentless pursuit of ideal conditions. Patricia, what makes a master just that? I know we're all in the process of becoming masters. Of what? Our consciousness itself, perception of the constant flow, wondering. The master is simply the one who recognizes himself as pure awareness. Simple as that. You're not really mastering anything. Again, from the human perception, from people's perception of the master, there's just this constant flow of wisdom and love and compassion. There's all sorts of things. And then we associate that with being a master. The true master is the one who has disappeared. They no longer, you're not looking at a master, you are looking at the Tao. There's not somebody who has mastered wisdom. You are seeing wisdom appear in a human form. The one who striving for mastery has disappeared. Has to. The striver for mastery can never attain it. The striver for mastery disappears, and the master, the one, the Buddha, the awakened one, God, the I Am, appears. Shines through the form. There's nothing wrong with the form. The form is necessary. Without the form, there's no conversation. There's no intimacy, right? But when the form is being governed by the egoic mind, the imaginary sense of self, it will seem as though there's a person there doing things. And when we think of it that way, we then think of the spiritual master as a person who has attained a high level of understanding or enlightenment. Right? It's not what it is at all. The egoic mind, which has been governing the form, has evaporated. And now what's governing the form is the true wisdom, the awakened one, the true mind, God. There is no person anymore. The form's still here. Nothing wrong with the form. The form is innocent. The form isn't a problem. The body isn't a problem. The mind isn't a problem when it is liberated from the egoic sense of self. When that self is gone, what's happening? Right? There's nobody there at all. There's just the pure wisdom. You can't call the infinite beingness shining through a form a person. You can't call it someone, because it's the same thing shining through your body as there is through mine. There's only one entity. There's only one conscious being. Right? There's billions of egos which are just thoughts. That while they're still there, right, influence the appearance of this form, and it's kind of like a cloud. The truth of your nature doesn't shine through very much, right? Some more than others, and some very naturally, because everybody's drawn to love and compassion and that sort of thing, at least everybody here. So it is shining through, but eventually the whole fictitious self just falls away. And there's nothing but the light shining through the form. And the form is needed, because without the form, you can't see the light. Light in its purest form is invisible. It has to have parts of it blocked so that color can appear. It's got to absorb some things, reflect others. The reflection is what you see as a form. And that's the beauty of it. But all I'm doing is pointing you back away from the person, the egoic mind, the egoic thinking, to the actual light that's shining through this form right now. And just let it shine some more. Does that answer it for you, Patricia? Yeah. Perception of the constant flow. Yes, but more importantly, the perception of yourself as the constant motionlessness against which the flow can be seen. You don't flow with the flow. You are the eternal witness of the flow. So it's not just perceiving the constant flow. It is perceiving the perceiver of the constant flow. Does that answer it for you? I think that's better. Jay, what about a small meditation session since it's been a long time? It is my intention to start doing some morning meditations again. Now that I'm in my place and I have nice internet and I don't have to run off to the park, I can just do it in the morning. Still getting used to the time change, right? Because that means I'd be doing it at 9 o'clock in the morning. But I will be doing some more meditations for sure. And I hope you'll join me in this retreat again. You were in the last one. It was really, really good. So I'm going to put that up again because I really want you all to come. I really want you all to come. Let's see. Russell, greetings GP and all in Durban, South Africa. Hi Russell, good to have you. Volume is low. Might be me though. It's pushed in is about. I think it's pretty good. I mean, it sounds good through the headphones. Himank. Oops, lost you. Shoot. Ugh. Himank, where are you? Oh, there we are. The meaning of life, essentially, is that there is no meaning to it. It just is. Yes, that's true. But don't make that a fatalistic thing. There is no meaning to life, right? There's no absolute meaning to life other than to just be life, right? It just is. Something that just is doesn't have a meaning. That is, it doesn't borrow purpose and meaning from something external. We always think, I've got to have a purpose in my life. I mean, I've got to do something. I've got to accomplish something. I've got to contribute something. That me serving something separate, external to me. It's not it. That's not it. Life, what's the purpose of a dog? To be a dog, right? What purpose do they serve? Oh, just pure enjoyment, right? What's the meaning of your life? Ultimately, absolutely, to just be, to be life. What's the meaning? This. Sitting together, we're talking, we're celebrating, we're enjoying each other. That's it. Now, meaning, there's no absolute meaning, but there is relative meaning. I mean, there are people in my life who mean a lot to me, right? They have a very special place in my life. And so they have meaning. Is there an absolute meaning? No. The meaning is derived from our relationship. So they mean something to me. It's not an absolute meaning because they don't mean the same thing to somebody else, right? So it's not absolute meaning in that sense. So while absolutely life just is, it doesn't have any meaning, relatively speaking, it's filled with meaning. Everything has meaning. When I hear people waking up or having some insight or feeling a sense of freedom, enormous amount of meaning for me. That's why I do this, right? Now, ultimately, what happens? Well, they may go off somewhere, go to another teacher, or or do something else, or somebody dies, right? I mean, so that meaning is not it's not an absolute, but it's not a denial of meaning, right? The mistake we make is when we try to take relative meaning and make it absolute. That's what religion does, right? This is God. This is the way it is. This is the right way of seeing it, right? Not my perception of it, not what it means to me. This is the meaning, and it should mean that to you. And I'm going to torture you until you agree with me. Or I'm going to, I mean, you know the drill of these kinds of things, and the silliness of it. So as long as we don't mistake a relative meaning, a personal meaning, for absolute meaning, we're fine. And then you can also let it change. Something that meant a great deal to you, before means nothing to you now. Relationships and events and places and things and possessions. Oh, it's so meaningful. I have this, so wonderful. And then, a little bit later, selling it on eBay. Right? So there's nothing absolute there. So we don't want to get stuck in our meanings. Right? And when you realize that that's the case, then what's the ultimate absolute meaning? To create meaning, right? To simply be. To be. To love. To appreciate. To give things meaning. Because that's how you have relationships. Oh, it's so simple, so beautiful. Yes, and on the absolute level, there's no meaning to this. There's no purpose to what is. It just is. Everything derives its purpose from it, because it is what is. It doesn't serve anything outside of itself. It isn't referred to by anything outside of itself. It isn't relating to anything outside of itself. It is what is. And therefore it is the reference point for everything else. John Hirschberger in Oakland. I used to live near Oakland. I used to live in Fremont. Mike Bukur. GP, how do I deal with fear? Thank you. Well, first off, let's separate the vast majority of the fear we have to deal with, which is psychological fear, from genuine physiological fear. Right? The fear that something is chasing me. I mean, a direct, immediate threat to your person. Right? That fear is real and necessary. It's how the body responds when it is threatened. Right? So there's that mechanism there. Now this was meant to just come and go. Fear came, right? Your body got ready to run away. It ran. It got out of the danger. It all just calmed back down again. That's its nature. With the advent of the psychological mind, we came the ability to create imaginary scenarios that triggered the same physiological fear. So an idea in our head suddenly started feeling as real and as threatening as the bear chasing us. This association is what we need to see through, because the mind is a prolific inventor of bad results in the future. It is forever anticipating what could go wrong, because we've got this weird, crazy psychological distortion that makes us think, if I know everything that can go wrong, I'll be able to avoid it and stay safe. Which is, of course, not possible, not true, and has the horrible effect of never, ever, for one moment, allowing you to actually feel safe. This is the nature of the psychological projection. You never actually get to feel safe because you're always anticipating the next thing that could go wrong. That's where the habit has to be broken. That gap there between what's actually here now and what might happen is filled with fear and anxiety and doubt and all sorts of things. I mean, we spend billions of dollars every year trying to anticipate who might hurt us. What a waste of time and money. So the way to put an end to that, well, it's twofold. One is recognize that the expectations and anticipations of what might go wrong are imaginary. And to consciously begin bringing your attention away from those things to what is happening now. In this moment, right here, right now, if you don't compare it to any other moment, is there anything wrong with right now? In order for us to feel anything but safe and content in this moment, we have to be indulging our minds, comparing it to something else. Oh, it used to be better. Oh, if we could only get that back. Or, well, if we do this and this, it's going to be really great then, which makes right now not okay. But if you don't compare it, and what are you going to be comparing it to, right? The past, which is a memory, just a thought, and the future, which hasn't happened, so it's imaginary, and it's just a thought. You're comparing right now, which is not a thought, to a past thought and a future thought, and feeling discomfort and fear right now for no reason whatsoever, because the bear isn't chasing you. Can you see how your entire world can come into this right now? Now that doesn't mean we don't plan, take some precautions, but if the focus of your attention is what's actually happening right now, and really have that sense of being present and in the moment, the plans for the future, preparations, things to avoid, right, will not dominate. They won't cause any fear. Because you'll realize that, first off, there's nothing you can do. There's only so much you can do, so it'll be in proportion. And secondarily, I have all the inner resources I need to meet any circumstance that should happen to come. So I don't have to prepare in advance. When it happens, if it happens, I will be ready for it, because everything is working in that regard and preparing me to be ready for it, because I'm present. If I'm constantly in the past or the future, I'm not present now. I'm not actually really engaging with anything. And when I'm really engaging, when I'm really present, I have all of my natural resources available to me. The creativity and compassion and wisdom and patience, all of the things that you need to deal with something completely unexpected. I don't want to plan as to what it's going to be. I don't want to try to avoid everything. I want to live. I want to feel this moment. Right? So don't think of fear as something you have to get rid of. Never put anything in that category, because you'll actually make more of it, because now you'll be fighting with it. You're trying to design strategies to overcome all fears. It's not possible. Fear is a natural reaction. When you realize that, you let it go, and what happens is quite miraculous. You find you're only afraid when there's really something to be afraid of, and you're not afraid otherwise. That's what it means to be just at peace and in harmony with your life as it is. Does that help you, Mike? Fear isn't something we have to conquer, right? A lot of people do it like that. Fear, we're going to conquer our fears and we're going to move forward with courage, right? It's like, no, you don't have to do that. You have to conquer fear. You have to understand it. When you understand it, it doesn't dominate you anymore. When it's there, right? And you'll see the effect that it has on the emotions and how it wants your mind to act. But from this place of conscious awareness, you don't have to act that way. You can see it in completely different light and therefore become its master. Hopefully that answers it for you, Mike. Wow, 134 already? My goodness. Linus, I knew it could be excruciating, but I didn't do Qigong to expect Kundalini. And the last thing I want to do is feel guilty about the energy. I need so much trust now. The genie is out of the ball, it seems, so surrender. What else? That's it. That's all you have to do, Linus. Just surrender to it. There's nothing wrong with the Qigong. I like to do Qigong. Qigong. I guess that's how you say it, Qigong. Or Qigong. I like to do that. I like to do yoga. I like to work out with weights. I like to do things for my body. I just don't I don't project anything onto them that isn't there. Qigong has a particular, Qigong has a, Qigong in other languages, has a particular effect, right? That's the effect I get, and I don't expect it to give me anything else. Same thing with yoga, working out with weights, jogging, whatever it is you do for exercise. And I don't do any of it for enlightenment. And sometimes sometimes there could be a big burst of energy, and sometimes it can be even a little uncomfortable. I have to just run some more just to let it work through the body, right? But I don't seek in any of those things what they can't give. And what they can't give is the direct perception of myself as I actually am. That only comes from the deepest kind of self-inquiry, which is what we're doing here and on the retreat. So I'm going to take this down again for now. I like it on the screen all the time. Robert Hill, hi Mr. G, you got this. After my shift, to be honest, the clear feeling of lack located in my stomach never left. I am 99% happy really, but the feeling is always in the background. It's physical. Okay, let it be there, right? To be 100% happy is to completely let go of any idea that anything should be any different than it is. Okay, so there's a pit there in the stomach. Right? That's the reminder that the separate self is the fear of lack and the fear of death. That's what comes with that sense of being separate, of not being pure, undifferentiated consciousness. That identification with the body immediately gives rise to the sense of lack and the sense of and the fear of death. And they are felt. Right? They're not just, the thoughts come later. We give words to express it. It's felt. Right? So feel it. What you're feeling is the activity of the false sense of self that is still active in certain parts of the body. That's it. That's all it is. That habit energy is still active. Don't make an issue of it. Don't make a deal out of it. Don't try to get rid of it. Just notice it. Say, there it is. And then bring your attention to the one who is aware of it. Because all it is the residual sense of being a separate self that's still active in the nervous system. That's all it is. Right? And you'll find that you are 100% happy all the time. And that 99% is actually a desire for an emotional sense of happiness, which is not the true contentment of awakening. It's just the desire for, feel better than worse, which is normal, right? But that's not the ultimate happiness. Right? So it's not a problem. So there's this feeling of lack that's physically in your stomach. Let it be there. Okay. Don't turn it into a conflict, and it won't be one. It's just a presence. It'll eventually dissolve. It has to. Right? But it's okay that it's there because it's a reminder. I'm still here. I'm still getting you. And you go, I see you. You're not getting me anymore. So it's not a bad thing. Mike, you are a great teacher. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mike. Oh, very touching. Alicia, What's the fastest and most effective way to get back to feel our original self when we get lost in what makes us suffering or experiencing right now that seems so real? Thanks. The very fastest way, turn your attention away from what you're experiencing to the one who is experiencing it. To whom is all of this appearing? Remember, the habit energy is to be constantly focused on the suffer, what the experiencing is. And one of the ways it keeps our attention there is, oh, what can I do to get rid of this, to change this, to make this go away? Oh, where do I got to put my attention? Can you see that you're still struggling with it? To whom is it appearing? Well, to me. Oh, well, who am I? Immediately, attention has turned around to the one who's experiencing it. And now, very subtle, it'll want to look back and say, oh, this is great. Is the suffering still there? It's I've come up all sorts of clever little ways to try to seduce you back to paying attention to the suffering. Right? Don't pay attention to it. Okay, it's there. Right? Fine, it's there. Drop any intention to get rid of it or change it or fix it or do anything with it at all. To whom is it appearing? To me. Attention has turned around. And then you'll see the whole story, the psychological story that turns what in fact is experience, neutral, into suffering. That's happening in the mind. You turn your attention away from the experience and the story about the experience, and eventually the story falls away even when the experience doesn't. And then the experience is fine. This is just the experience I happen to be having. Who's having that experience? I am. Who am I? Who is this that experiences all these ups and downs? Notice how attention just gets more and more interested in itself. Attention turns back to its source, to its boss, to the one it always reports to, the president of this inner company. But you can see it's a very subtle trap to want to do something to make the suffering go away. Suffering is intellectual. It isn't actually physical. It isn't experiential. It is an interpretation of experience. And that interpretation is sustained completely by our identification with the one who is suffering and the one who's trying to get out of suffering, both of which are constructs of the mind, both of which are appearing to you. And who are you? Let that question become so burning to you that there'll be very little distraction. You'll become your mind will become quite one-pointed. And that's what it takes. Who am I? That has to become the most important question for you to answer. Just that sense I am, without anything additional attached to it. You're great, Alicia. G. Gudamand. Hi, GP. Nice to see you. Nice to see you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Hi, dear GP. Good question about masters, Patricia. Yeah. From October Paul. Dear GP, please could you speak of when there is seeing the illusion of the small self as never been true, yet the world keeps appearing and seeming others keep reinforcing the old dreams, and small self reactivates. The knowing of truth in a world which seems to continue, as well as memories and painful triggers, is it simply knowing I don't believe it? It's not true as it all arises? Beautiful. The world, that is, experience, will continue to arise. But now notice, you've seen through the illusion of the small self. I'm not this image in my mind. That's not me. But that image in your mind doesn't exist in a vacuum. That image, the small self, exists in an environment. That environment is what we call the world. You can't separate the two. Drop your ideas as to what the world is in the same way you drop the idea of who you were, of who the self was. The world is only what you think it is. Right? So what's actually happening is the vasanas, your own conditioning is arising, attempting to recreate a world, right, that includes this separate self. It doesn't want to let go of this self. Right? Okay, fine. Notice it. You're not the self. You're not the world. You're not those people. Matter of fact, those people are not what you think they are. The idea that there's people and events and things out there that are influencing negatively your own awakening is a belief. It's not true. If you believe it, you will experience it as if it were true, but it isn't. There's nobody out there. There's nobody interfering. There's nobody causing problems. There's nobody making a mess. There's no world. The world is simply an image in your mind. So just take your inquiry even further. It's not, I'm a small self in this world, and now I've realized that I'm actually the self in the world. There's no world. There's only myself. There's only the self. Now that self is without boundary, right? If it's got a boundary, well, it's a finite self, isn't it? It's a small self. So the realization is that consciousness has no boundaries, no borders. It has no boundaries and no borders. It's everywhere. Matter of fact, it's beyond everywhere. There's no where in it. It's everywhere, which means everywhere is here. There's nothing but here, which means everything appears in it. There's no world in which you are living. The world is nothing but a story being played in your mind, an image, the play of Leela, the play of consciousness. For when it creates a sense of self, it must create a setting for that sense of self. It can't exist in a vacuum, right? You know, the story, the guy in the book, you know, the character in the book or the character in the movie, there has to be a main character, there's a setting, and there's a plot. You can't have a character without some kind of interaction. It's the nature of so the entire thing is the false self. The world is the false self. It's not somebody in the world, it is the world. But you're not that. You're aware of the main character, the plot, and the setting. Right? All of them are reporting to you. So what's actually reappearing is the habit of the mind still attempting to create a form. Right? So when you say the world keeps appearing, no. The thoughts about the world keep appearing. Fine. You don't have to worry about a world. You only have to worry about the thoughts of the world that are appearing to you. To whom are they appearing? To me. Who am I? Right? At that point, you're no longer concerned about the world, however your mind happens to conceive it. Your attention is where? On the one perceiving it. And really, this is the only practice you need to do. This isn't elaborate, right? You simply put your attention on the sense I am. And it will eventually go right through that sense of I am to the absolute heart of being. Because without you here to perceive it, what could the world possibly be? Without you perceiving, if you didn't exist, none of this would exist, at least from your perspective. perspective, right? We can imagine that to others' perspective, but who are the others except something we've perceived? I imagine that there are others. I don't actually know that for certain. I don't need to go off on that. Just your thinking about yourself, your ideas about yourself you've seen aren't true. The ideas you're holding of the world, they're not true either. You don't have to figure it out. You don't have to penetrate the whole thing. Just keep going back to you, to the sense I am. Everything will, all the wisdom, all the knowledge, all the insight will unfold from there. It will all become crystal clear. As Christ said, be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. This is the mission you're on, to overcome our sense of the world. It's clearly, he wasn't a king, he didn't have an army, he didn't conquer anybody. What did he talk about? What did he mean? He completely transcended the idea of a world that was anything less than the kingdom of heaven. As he said in the Gospel of Thomas, the kingdom of God is spread upon the earth, but people don't see it. He did, as are you. Wonderful question. Thank you, Sophie. Lisa, 123. When I try to do Buddhist meditation, such as watching the breath as the object of focus, or a body scan, or using the sounds around me as the object of focus, I get nervous before and after doing the meditation. And this is discouraged. After doing the meditations, and this discourages me from doing them, because I don't like doing them because I feel fear and anxiety before, during, and after doing the meditations. Yeah, who the hell wants that, right? I'm thinking that this is a sign that my mind or soul doesn't want to do these meditation practices, but I also want to push myself and continue doing the Buddhist meditations because I read that it's good for me, and if I stick with it, despite the discomfort the meditations bring up, I will experience benefits. I wonder what I should do with these Buddhist meditation practices. Should I stick with Buddhist meditation even though it causes me discomfort and increases my anxiety? No, don't continue with those practices. Not discontinue meditation, right? And yes, it is resistance, but it doesn't do any good to just try to force yourself through it. You just can't, use brute force to get through it. Okay? Many forms of meditation are really actually forms of concentration. Okay? True meditation is about insight. It is about seeing. It's not just about concentrating so you can focus on your breath. Right? And of course, there can be some anxiousness there can be some energy there, because you're forcing your attention somewhere without wisdom, without really knowing why, without even knowing what is this for. Right? So set all of that aside. And I'm gonna give you a very, very simple meditation to do. Very simple. Yeah. You simply close your eyes and notice that the breath is there. Don't focus on it. Don't try to keep it on the breath or on a sound or on a candle. There's no need to do that. Nobody can actually do that, and there's no need to do that. We're not here to try to be able to focus so intensely, right, that we can exclude everything out. You naturally focus on what you're interested in. You don't have to force it, right? So you just notice that the breath is there. You're breathing. It's happening all by itself. Right? Something distracts you, you notice you're distracted, you just bring your attention back. And then after the breathing, just start feeling your body. Not a body scan like in Vipassana, but just feeling the presence of your body. And if there's a twitch over here, or there's a little pain over here, or there's some tension here, Don't make any deal. Don't try to do anything with it except watch it. And if some anxiety comes up, right? Because you said you start feeling nervous or anxious, then just notice it. Don't let the mind say, "Oh, this is a problem. We're not doing meditation. Something's wrong." No, it's exactly right. It's there. You're noticing what's there. So the whole focus of meditation is to simply see what's here, without an agenda, without an argument, without any expectation, without trying to bring about some result. Right? So if my whole intention for meditation is to see what's here, if I'm sitting here seeing what's here, I am 100% successful. And then the mind will distract you. Oh, look, I got distracted. That happened. Again, no problem, right? Right? Because you simply watched it. It's not an issue. You go, oh, okay, bring your attention back. And this way you just start feeling. You start slowly coming out of thinking, coming out of the normal way, our normal story. And it's just the pure feeling of presence here and now. And then just notice that all of the things that you're aware of, all the things of the body, and that there's an awareness of it. If that awareness wasn't there, the body simply wouldn't be, right? So it's really, really important to just notice that you're noticing. You're aware of being aware. And if anxiousness comes up, go, oh, look, there's anxiousness. No story, no problem, no issue, no conflict with it. Just, there it is. Okay. The simplest meditation there is. And all you have to do is sit down and watch whatever's happening, and you're 100% successful. You can't fail. And if you notice your mind's all over the place and it doesn't want to do it, well, you're seeing what's actually happening. 100% success. You cannot fail at this. Okay? So give that a try, okay, Lisa? Let me check the time here. So, oh my goodness. I'm not used to the whole time difference thing. I don't know why. 2 hours difference and 3 hours difference is huge. Huge difference. So, do that. Do that, Lisa. It's very, 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 very simple. I've got nothing against different forms of meditation. I just find this to be the most direct and the simplest, and it really is where they're all leading to. In Zen, they call it shikantaza, which means just sit. It's Japanese for just sit. And if my whole intention is to just sit, and I'm sitting, well, good, I'm done. Success. You're just looking. Right? Which we do normally anyway, right? Attention is always going somewhere, and attention is always reporting back to you. So you're always looking. So in fact, the more you become aware of that, the more you'll find meditation isn't a formal practice. It's actually happening all the time. It is simply being aware of being aware. Beautiful, Lisa. Beautiful cat, too, in the picture. Late hello from Sweden. Hello, Barbara. October said, beautifully answered. Thank you, Chi. My head is in the mouth of the tiger. Yes. Yes. Last question. I've been asked to publish erotica short stories. Is this spiritually dangerous for me or others? Embarrassed to ask. Been bugging me. Well, it could be. I mean, it really is the intention behind it. I mean, let's face it, all human beings, we have a body, so it's erotic because we like it, right? The thing I always look for is it demeaning, especially to women? Is it objectifying? I mean, all of the porn I've had the experience of encountering, has not been great literature. It hasn't even been inspiring. It hasn't even been a turn on, because it's all rote and formula and ugly. There's no quality in it. It's completely demeaning to women. And so I would say I wouldn't want anything to do with that. But there's some erotic material out there that I don't have a problem with it per se, right? You know, it's not that I'm, I recommend people take a vow of celibacy. On the contrary, I recommend tantra to couples. So it's not spiritually dangerous. Just use your discretion. Do you feel comfortable with it, or is it just debasing? Is it actually adulterating, which means to cheapen, to make less than, or is it celebrating? It really is all the intention behind it, and you can be really clear about that. Yeah. So don't let it bug you. Don't let it bug you. And if you're unsure, don't do it. Right? Because obviously being spiritually clear is more important to you than that. So if there's a sense of discomfort, just pass. Right? Don't have to work it out right now. Patricia, thank you, G, for your answer. Very good. Took the clouds away. Great. Mario Leon, are we an expression of it? Early on, my first formal kind of training I ever had was kind of the New Thought stuff, unity, science of mind, and Christian Science. Those basically the three. Very similar point of view, and in that, man is the idea of God. Man is the manifestation of God, which worked. I mean, it's close. No cigar, but it is close, and it is effective in bringing about healing. But it creates a subtle duality, that there's God, the absolute, and then there's this other entity of some sort. So the human form, human activity, human thoughts and experiences is the manifestation of it. Okay? But you are not the manifestation, you are it. You are the consciousness of which all of this is a manifestation. So most people, including those in the New Thought Church, they see themselves as the manifestation. I am one with God. I'm the reflection of God. I'm the image and likeness of God. Right? But God, the true understanding of God is that God is consciousness, the entity. God, it is what is. Right? And so a manifestation is not an entity. It's a manifestation. It's an appearance of what is. Right? You are what is. Right? And you can tell because you're self-aware. So what you call your life is a manifestation. Right? But we are not a manifestation. We are it. We are the consciousness of which all of this is a manifestation. And there's no entity in the manifestation. The entity is the consciousness that is aware of it and of which it is a manifestation. So it isn't God and man. There is just the reality, the one consciousness, and the manifestation of that, which is not a self-aware entity. The only self-awareness is the self, and that is God. Has been called God in those traditions. Klesu, so how do I know what to do now? Don't try to figure it out. Right? The mind wants a plan, it wants a strategy. What do I do? Just start following your own intuition. Right? You can feel uncomfortable. You've made a big transformation. You can feel uncomfortable. Suddenly nothing feels quite right? Clothes don't seem to fit. Who am I now? Well, you're going to have to discover that. You're going to have to discover it for yourself. Long time ago, mid-30s, I'm divorced. I needed some clothes. I'm walking through a shopping mall and I realized I had no idea what I liked. I got married when I was young, had 2 kids. I was just taking care of them, going without, didn't give much thought to myself at all. Finally, they're older now. I'm on my own. For a while, they came and lived with me eventually. And I had no idea to choose something just for me. So, and for the longest time, I couldn't pick out a pair of clothing, or a set of clothes if I didn't see it on the mannequin, because I had no concept. Right? But eventually, you learn these things, right? I had no idea how to do a house. Right? Now I do. Right? Now I have a sense of it, and this works, this doesn't. I got one piece that didn't work. I'm going to have to get rid of it. I have to sell it. So let your life become a celebration and a surprise. You don't need to have a plan. How about letting yourself be surprised? The mind and our ego, they want everything just kind of nailed down, and it's going to be like this, and everything's going to be really good, and okay, and this is what I got to do, and this step, and this step, and this step. It's not interested in surprise. I mean, it doesn't like surprises, right? It's a whole other part of us that loves the surprise. So turn it into a curiosity, turn it into a self-discovery, right? Which is never ending, by the way, right? It's not that you get to some point, this is what I am, this is who I am, because you're infinite, right? So you never get to the point where it's, this is what I am now, this is what I am now, this is what I like now, this is what I like now. And so there's this most wonderful self-exploration. You are exploring the infinite nature of the self as it appears as a single individual. The infinite and the universal and the particular become one. This is how you know yourself and in its infinite variety in this instant. So I hope that answers it for you, Klesu. My goodness, I'm well over, I'm not that far, let's see. That one about fear was great, thank you. You're welcome, Hendrik, very welcome. Hey, monk, didn't mean to laugh at Victoria's question. Writing erotica may not really be spiritually affect him, but sure really fog out his other thoughts. Tell me I'm wrong, G. Temporarily it will push other thoughts out. There are some things that tend to get our attention, and we easily focus on it. On that note, if we're really allowed to ask anything, why is it that Nikki Haley is a minority ethnically, but at the same time is so white passing that more than half of her voter base doesn't even know about it until they look at her kind of brown kids? Been bugging me. Sorry if too political. I really don't know much about it. I don't pay much attention to these things. Obviously, it's all over the place. Certain things you can't avoid. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know her. I don't know the way her messaging. The way she's presenting herself to get elected and the like. No, it's okay that it's political. It's just one that I don't know that much about, because I don't know much about her. I don't have a problem talking about some political things, about our economic system and the like, because they represent values. They represent what we regard as being valuable and what is not valuable. And right now, what is regarded as valuable is money, above all else. And Christ made it quite clear, you cannot serve God and money. He said it, not me. So, don't quite know what to make of that, Himok. So it's okay that you ask. I just don't have an answer. Robert, exactly, G, nailed it. Thanks, much love. You're very welcome. Jay, have you ever gotten absorbed in an activity and felt like an effort to pull out of it? There's a sense of strong disinterest in pulling out of it. Oh, all the time. It happens all the time. When I'm writing something, when I'm producing one of my classes, when I'm hanging out with people I love, right? Yeah, I have no desire. I have to drag myself away from it. Sometimes I'll be writing music. I'll have to pee so bad that I've got cramps because I don't want to pull myself away. It's yes, it's very natural. It's very natural for anybody. That's the creative impulse. It's a very beautiful thing. Sophia, thank you so much. Very helpful. We'll keep inquiring. Good. October, thank you, G, once again. I'm not going to publish in all the wisdom that pours from your mouth. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, beautiful Satsang. Thanks, Doc. This is off subject, but I missed you terribly last week, and I'm happy to see you again. I'm so very happy to be back here. So, it's my new digs. Everybody like my new digs? Oh, one more time, I'm going to put it up there. Really, really want you guys, not that one, that one. I really want you guys I really want to have the opportunity to actually talk to you, to work with you on these things, where I can interact with a dialogue, which is really the best way to do satsang. So it's 3 days of satsang, of self-inquiry, of really taking care of you. So there's the link. Please join me for this retreat. It's only 2 hours of the day. Obviously, if it was live, we would start Friday evening, go all the way till Sunday evening, go through the whole time if it was live, and we'd be completely sequestered in our little room. But we can't do that because we can't get together in large groups. But we can do it virtually, and I'd really recommend that you join me, so we can interact in a way that I can't do in this form. And I would also invite you to make it as much of a retreat weekend as you possibly can. Right now, try to avoid a lot of distractions, a lot of amusements and entertainment and that sort of things. Obviously, there's some things we can't because we're at home. But do your best to try to really give yourself permission to truly focus on coming to know yourself as you actually are. Because that's all it takes is an earnestness. That's the number one ingredient. It's the only ingredient. It's all you need. Everything else will take care of itself. So that's it for today, dear friends. Himong, now you've changed my perspective on everything. Good. Thank you, sir. I was introduced to your channel time ago when trying to manifest a better body. Eva says, thank you. John Watson, look forward to Friday. Thanks again for another wonderful satsang. Thank you. Great. Oh, my friends. I love you all. So, until next time. Actually, next satsang will begin right after the last retreat, the last day of the retreat. So I hope to see you all there. Until then, namaste, everybody.